Capstone. For those joining in for the first time, Talking Points is a monthly offering from the Capstone Hub. And by the hub, I mean Capstone and the Pinnacle organization. Pinnacle by Capstone does early and mid career leadership and other work with organizations. And Capstone, of course, helps organization with leadership change, culture change, and building high performance cultures. So it's a really wide spectrum. We also do a lot of work internationally through Duke Corporate Education, and we're very excited to be able to bring particularly today's episode to all of you. We literally have a legend, an icon, somebody who is very inspiring himself, and has inspired so many professionals at different points in their own careers, me included. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very, very excited to be able to present to you today Anil Sachdev. He does not require introduction. He, as I said, is extremely iconic. But for those of you who would want to know more, here is the background of the author of The Inspired Leader and so much else that he's accomplished in one lifetime. So, Anil Sachdev is the founder and chairman of Soil Institute of Management in India. He's a pioneer in leadership development. He previously played a very pivotal role in a leading consulting firm called Grow Talent and has worked with leading global and Indian firms. He continues to do that. His work is deeply committed to shaping ethical and inspired leaders. I am just not surprised that someone like Anil has a school of inspired leadership. So he basically influences young people, put into action everything he's been asking people in the corporate world to do. And not surprised at all that he is out with a book, which we all know how badly we need, particularly in the 21st century and all the complexities that we experience in organizations at this time. So, before I bring in Anil, very quickly, for those joining in the first time or joining in late, I'm Dr. Sujaya Banerjee. I'm the founder CEO of Capstone People Consulting. Capstone is a leading organizational development, change, leadership capability building consulting firm. We work with over 250 organizations in India, over 150 in the world, in association with Duke. Duke's been ranked as number one in executive education in the world continuously for the past so many years. And our work with Duke is rated at 5 with an NPS of 100. So we're having a lot of fun working with leadership teams all across the world. So I think with that, let's get down to the opportunity we have today to be able to talk to the author of The Inspired Leader. So join me as I invite Anil to be able to come in. This is the book. Just to kind of let you all know that it must become part of the books that you're reading in the next couple of weeks. And I hope we inspire you enough with the conversation that we're going to have with the author of the book. So, like I said to Anil when we were catching up just before we started this conversation, that what a privilege to be able to have him on Talking Points. And I consider it a privilege to present his book. I do believe this is one of our living icons in the in India, particularly in the as an example of 21st century leadership, as someone who's inspired so many generations of people to be able to do the kind of work he does, and also his ability to be able to combine his immense prowess, knowledge, and his own inspiring leadership together with entrepreneurship. And I must say, Anil, you really lead the way on that, having inspired so many people like myself to be able to walk the entrepreneurial route and enjoy that so much. So thank you for that. And I think with that, let's kind of stop sharing the deck so that we can get Anil on the screen instead. So Anil, obviously, congratulations in order for the book.
Thank you.
So heartiest congratulations. I want to start our conversation today by being able to talk about, you talk about the inner self as a starting point in the book, and you're talking about self-awareness and the inner self. You're speaking about that in a world that measures leadership by external metrics. And I'm saying you're talking about the inner self in a world that is very interested in what you manifest outside yourself. And everyone's very driven by everything that happens outside yourself, like your titles, whether you've brought in revenues or not, your team size. How do leaders in times like this sort of resist the pressure to be able to look outwards and cultivate this relationship with themselves where they look inside instead. So I teach EQ very extensively, and I see leaders really struggling with this self awareness piece. I read in a very interesting book on the inner tennis, the inner game of tennis. Is a very interesting book, and it talks about self one and self two, and how expert tennis players have this innate ability to talk to their self one, which is their self awareness zone, like their self, what they see as their self, with their inner self, and they're having this conversation with their self and inner self all the time, and that enables a heightened level of awareness. It enables you to be able to strategize, you to become very aware of what your next steps ought to be. You're able to expand the pause and the time to be able to really sort of think between yourself and your inner self to be able to decide and be more authentic, and so on and so forth. So I want to be able to understand about the inner self in the context of, I'm sure the audience wants to understand as well. What is the inner self as a starting point? Tell us a bit about that.
No, thank you, Sujaya. And thank you very much for having me on your show.
Thank you.
Just to begin with, I want to invoke a feeling of gratitude in my heart to all those people who have helped me to reach where I am today. And I want all of us to just take a moment to silently thank the people who have been responsible for giving us opportunities, believing in us, encouraging us. So thank you. Today is the birthday of my mother in law, who was a wonderful person. My mother's birthday will follow 3 days from now. My
Lovely.
father, my spiritual teacher, and all the amazing colleagues and now students I've been working with for many years. So I think it's because of the opportunities I got to learn with them,
Hmm.
everything that has happened through me. See, this world of achievement, which we say the achievement in the outer world, which is the amount of influence we have, the power we get because of that, the name and fame that we get as a result of our work, in a continuously changing world, these are all material dimensions. Material means matter. Matter means the nature of matter is that it keeps changing. The body keeps changing no matter how much we try to make it look young. The mind keeps changing because we keep moving from one relationship to another, from something we fancy to something we no longer like. The thoughts keep changing and evolving at different stages of our life. So, body is matter, even the mind is matter, even the intellect is matter because it keeps changing.
Hmm.
But the only awareness that we have is that life giving force inside each one of us, which is there from the moment we are born and is still there with us even when we pass through this body into the next stage, whatever that is.
Hmm.
So, that is the power of invoking that life giving force. That is the one which is changeless.
Hmm.
That is the one which lights up our body and our five senses. It lights up our mind and makes us feel. It lights up the intellect and makes us discern.
Hmm.
That power which gives us the capacity to perceive, to feel, to think, and to act.
Hmm.
That is the what is most important, and therefore all the studies on leadership for the last many years have moved towards integral leadership, authentic leadership, and leadership from within, that
Hmm.
you are very aligned with the why of your life,
Hmm.
with the what of your life, and the how of your life. The most important comes from the source, the why. And that goes with an ultimate question. For instance, why was I born?
Hmm.
And What is the purpose of my own life?
Hmm.
So, when leaders are rooted in understanding who they are, what their own journey in life is all about, what the purpose is, then when they ask these questions, they are also reminded of what they are truly unique at doing.
Hmm.
What is their uniqueness?
Hmm.
And the moment they appreciate their uniqueness and they
Hmm.
understand the work they have come here to do, and they begin to act with the awareness to these two questions, that I know who I am and I know why I am here. This is called self knowledge. And
Hmm.
this is the knowledge which is the most profound knowledge, knowing which all other forms of knowledge are possible.
Hmm.
So, this is what I would just like to say as an opening part of why the power of the inner witness is the only aspect that matters, because rest everything keeps decaying, changing. But this one is your best friend, which will remain with you till the very end, which is
Right.
the inner silence, which is the inner space. So that's why I
Right.
talk about that. Yes.
Lovely. It's beautiful, and I'm hoping that it's kind of getting people closer to understanding what that inner self and self awareness, really is. I'm just wondering whether you can expand a bit on life giving forces. I think it gets used very meaningfully in the context of OD, but in the interest of the others who may not understand what life giving forces may really be. Can we expand a bit on that for them to be able to understand what you're referring to?
Yeah. What gives life to a human being is what the great philosopher J. Krishnamurti says is choiceless awareness,
Hmm. Hmm.
pure awareness. And that
Hmm.
is what we say is also the practice of mindfulness, to be fully present, to
Yeah.
be fully aware.
Yeah.
And this pure awareness, this life giving force, this consciousness, the one which gives life,
Hmm.
that is the one which manifests even in organizations, and the entire organization has what is called the spirit of the organization, which is the collective consciousness of all the people who are working there.
Hmm.
And when they act with this complete awareness that they are manifestation of that life-giving force which gives life to everything that is possible, then they begin to honor the great work that happens through them. And by appreciating the great work that happens to them, then they begin to also visualize how can they utilize their own strengths and their own uniqueness in leveraging that to take the entire organization to its next level of evolution, by collectively dreaming about how they can leverage this life-giving force to create a future with immense possibility, which
Hmm.
then gives them the opportunity to then not only visualize it, but to then design the future,
Yeah.
and then to take responsibility to manifest the future. So,
Mm,
the, when you follow the life giving force in a system, just as an example, in medicine, we study disease, which is when
mm,
the system is not at ease, it is disease. But
mm,
instead of treating symptoms and instead of trying to kill the disease, when you try to understand what gives vitality, what gives health, and what gives immunity, when
mm.
you improve the health of the human body,
Yes.
then then the person becomes really at ease. That
Mm,
gives the person the opportunity, the inner strength to heal
mm.
herself. And then the medicine becomes only a part of the journey and not the way to confront the
Right.
system when it is not at ease. So,
Right.
similarly, in an organization, when you study the true health of an organization, you honor the vitality, the life giving force,
Right.
and you don't just fix problems, because problem solving will only create one kind of organization, but possibility creation and
Mm,
vision creation, the
mm,
transformation based on vision, is
mm,
far more powerful than a transformation based on problem solving. So that's how
mm.
it's also get links to an organization.
Right. So it's interesting because you're saying many counterintuitive things as compared to what people normally talk about today. Because for a lot of people, it's, I mean, very unapologetically a culture of problem solving, which is how we measure performance. So, what you unleash when you solve a problem is performance. And I say, and I can hear you say that, in not an environment of problem solving, but an environment of immense possibilities and opportunities. And if you really look at it from an abundance perspective, you're more likely to be able to manifest about the abundance that you're imagining. So great stuff. You talk about 7 practices in the book. And I'm just going to call them out, but it'd be great to be able to get like a sort of summarized perspective from you on the 7 practices. So, for those of you who have not read the book yet, the book talks about 7 practices to unblock your leadership potential. And these 7 practices are mindfulness and self awareness, deep listening and empathy, uh, compassion and care, appreciation and positivity, authenticity and vulnerability, collaboration and synergistic team building, and purpose and meaning, which is the life giving force. So I'm going to invite you to talk a bit about this because it's so integral to the book that you've written. So tell us a bit about the 7 practices.
So first, I begin in the book by saying that there are two big lies about leadership. One, that leaders are born. We all know they are not born, and I tell specific stories about that. My favorite story is one of James Doty. When he was 12 years old, he had a clinically depressed mother, an abusive alcoholic father, and he
Mm,
thought it's the end of his life. Till he
mm,
met this very kind woman in a magic shop. The woman's name is Ruth. And Ruth began to talk to him and began to have conversation with him that made him explore the new dimension to understand that his own thinking about saying my life is that I am a victim of my circumstances. He began to change the conversation to say, I am responsible for my life. I will make my life. My dream is to become the finest neurosurgeon in the world. And even at 12, I can dream, I can work, I can make that happen. And this is what I enjoy doing as a kid. And this is what I will grow further in my life. Sure enough, James Doty became the finest neurosurgeon in the world. He set up the Stanford practice. He created the Center for Altruism and Compassion, became the emissary of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. His book, Into the Magic Shop, became the theme of BTS, the K pop group in Korea. And the music they created based on his book became the best selling music. For several months, it was on top of the charts. The music is also called Into the Magic Shop. So
mm,
here is James Doty, and here is this kind woman who made him change the language of his own mind. So, which brings me to the other chapter I talk about, where saying the story we tell ourselves about ourselves when we are alone, that has a profound impact on the way we lead our lives.
mm,
One story could be, why has this happened to me in my life? Why are
mm,
people always like this? Why am I
mm,
not given the right deal? Why do I
mm,
get into relationships which have no meaning? Why does
mm,
my boss not like me?
mm,
Etc. Etc.
mm, mm,
Some people always complain about the world.
mm,
And there are others, even when they have extremely serious problems and challenges, they say, why not me?
mm,
How do I now take responsibility for the cards dealt to me? No,
mm,
and rather than say life is unfair.
mm,
And because their words empower them, and they always choose to say that I am enough, I have the best life I could potentially have in these circumstances. And you know what? Irrespective of my constraints, I'm going to make the most of it. And I'm
mm,
going to grow. I'm going to take responsibility for what I truly love because I choose to do this. So I talk about the power of the story you tell yourself about yourself when you are alone, the
yeah,
narrative of your
yeah,
life. Then
yeah,
I say, anytime you watch your own story, ask yourself what has given you meaning and joy in whatever you have done.
yeah,
Every time you wanted to do something, you did something. What satisfaction did you get? What were the moments that made you truly happy? Which
Mm.
the memory of which even today inspires you about your own life, what has happened in
Right.
your life. And then based on that, how do you identify the gifts that you have? Because each time you do your best work and you are happy, your unique gifts are at display. So how do you do a process of what we call appreciative inquiry with yourself
Mm.
to determine what you are good at doing,
Mm.
and always honor your own gifts, because no human being is alike the other, and
Mm.
every one of us has come here with a certain agenda to do, to achieve,
Mm.
and to
Mm.
contribute.
Mm.
Honoring your uniqueness is a wonderful way to do that. So that's the second chapter that I talk about. Then I say, see, in this whole attempt about telling your new story to yourself in using your gifts,
Mm.
you have to understand the process of conscious learning. So
Mm.
I talk about every time you set a goal for yourself, and then when you sit with yourself after time has passed to say, this is what I wanted to do, this is what
Mm.
actually happened. Now, what
Mm.
did I learn? What did I learn about this? So when I introspect and say, this is what I learned, and also about how did I learn? Did I learn through reading? Did I learn through writing? Did I learn through dialogue? Did I learn through doing certain things? So when we consciously say not just what I learned,
Mm.
but what did I learn and how did I learn,
Mm.
then next time when I set a goal, I will consciously apply what the way I learn to
Mm.
become better at something I want to become better at. And I give the
Right.
example of Mr. Muthuraman, the head of Tata Steel, who with whom I worked very extensively. He had this beautiful process between Christmas and New Year. Mr. Muthuraman used to spend a week alone with himself. No books, no TV, no phone.
Mm.
And he would write down the 7 roles that were important in his life: the role of a son, the role of a father, the role of a spouse, the role of the CEO of Tata Steel, the role of a golfer, the role of a community citizen,
Mm.
etc.
Mm.
And for each one, he would write what would he like to do in the next year that is coming up. And then he would sit and spend time. What did I actually do? And what did I learn? And how
Mm.
will I now become a better version of myself in my different roles that are
Right.
important to me for the next year? And he did that for a whole week. And he
Mm.
would make copious notes. He showed
Mm.
me literally hundreds of notes he has made for himself on his life. In fact, I
Mm.
was telling him, I said, Mr. Muthuraman, you and I should write a book together. That was the original idea. He and I were supposed to write this book.
Okay.
But for whatever reason, Mr. Muthuraman was not able to. And then I told him, sir, I'm going to go ahead and write this book anyway, but I'm still hoping that all your notes which you have made about your life can become the real wealth of insights for someone else. So this is introspection, learning
Right.
from the past. But then based on that, what attention are you giving to your own actions today, your own thoughts today, your own emotions? What is helping you to learn? What is coming in the way? What's the noise of your mind that comes in the way? Paying attention to the present, you get insights about your own self. That is
Right.
learning from the present, which we call contemplation and reflection. And then
Mm.
when you learn from the future, how do you consciously maintain that childlike curiosity? I am
Mm.
71 today, but I still have that tremendous childlike curiosity in just being fascinated by things that I want to learn about. These days, I'm very fascinated by the power of using AI for good. So I am enjoying learning all the tools. I'm playing around with them. I'm trying to see what I can do with them. This childlike curiosity, which makes us learn from the future, that no matter how challenging, like the COVID happened, I said, oh my God, this is a pandemic. It's very frightening at one level, but it's a huge opportunity for us to learn. So, what can I do to learn out of this? With that, so that is learning from the unborn future, which is the foresight. So, I mentioned in the process of conscious learning your
Yeah.
hindsight, your insight, and your foresight. Then I move on to the next chapter on the power of how do you think with a holistic mind. not just the rational, the logical, the analytical, but how do you learn from the more intuitive, the more feminine part of yourself, which
Mm,
in the Indian ethos we talk about the concept of Ardhanarishwar, half
mm,
man, half woman,
mm,
which means
mm,
the more intuitive, the feminine part. How do you honor that as much as the more masculine, the action oriented, the rational, the logical? But how do you embrace both, and how do you invoke the power of overcoming the fears that stop you from being intuitive and creative? So I
mm.
talk a lot about how creativity is very high with us when we are children. But by the time we are teenagers, most of us get blocked in our creativity because we get full of fears, fear of failure, fear of lack of time, fear of ambiguity, fear of being proven wrong, and so on and so forth. Then I talk about how you can overcome the fears, and I give many experiments and examples of colleagues whom I have worked with, and also experiments I've done on myself. Like Rajiv Dubey introduced me to the fire walk. When I was going
Okay,
to become an entrepreneur, I did the fire walk, right? Walking
okay.
on 1100 degrees Celsius and walking over a pit of burning fire, and what that does to you in embracing your fears. So there are many such beautiful things which are part of the book on how do you overcome your fears and think with the whole mind. Then I talk about the power of relationships to say relationships are truly honoring the empathy in you,
Mm, mm,
practicing compassion, practicing gratitude, building trust.
mm,
And how do you build that with people who are not like you? How do you
mm,
learn to have dialogue across differences? How do you
mm,
pause and not get hounded by your biases? And
mm.
so, how do you really build trust? So, I talk about the practice of that, and I bring many examples. Then I finally move to the capacity for action. We say all these things I've talked about. Tell us what is to be done, but still in doing that, something
Mm,
comes in the way. So, how do you bridge the knowing to doing gap? How do you
mm,
build the stamina and the energy? How do you
mm,
consciously manage your time? How do you
mm,
consciously manage your productivity, your quality, and your full focus? So I
mm.
talk about all that. And of course, then I move on to the power of purpose and values, saying
Right,
ultimately, the big power, which I began by telling also, is from the power and for what you deeply care about, your values. And the
right.
chapter, the very last chapter is see all this attempt to become a more inspired leader, still a more inspired leader will be stopped by your own mind, because there is a part of your own mind that will prevent you
Mm,
to change. There I
mm,
refer to the work of Robert Keegan and his immunity to change, and why Keegan and Leahy's work is so profoundly important and so close to also the Indian spiritual literature, which says become the observer of your own mind. So
mm,
invoke the inner witness. When you watch how your own mind is preventing you to improve, how it is stopping you to transform,
mm, mm,
and you have the tool of what is called the immunity x-ray. So how do you make the immunity x-ray of your own mind, and how do you use the Indian knowledge of wisdom and Vedanta, which talks about absolutely the same thing, to say
mm.
how your mind is coming in the way? So
Right,
when you learn to overcome the limitations of your own mind and the paradox that your own mind is putting to you, that on one side it wants to improve, the other side it resists the need to change, then when you invoke the inner witness, and what do you do to embrace that? So that is the
right.
final step on invoking the inner witness to overcome all the stumbling blocks that prevent you. This is a summary of all my chapters.
Right, right. And it's kind of very well sort of articulated. I'm going to still go in to be able to ask a couple of questions
Sure,
around themes that you brought up. So, I'm going to pick up the theme around empathy,
sure.
especially in the contemporary context, and then also the research and how the brain works when it comes to empathy. So, a snapshot of empathy and the role of empathy, particularly in times of constant change and complexity, which is what organizations are experiencing. And I think what is in short supply in this constant state of flux and change is that employees do not experience empathy. Managers do not experience empathy. Yeah, leaders do not experience empathy, and so there's a huge deficit of empathy because everyone wants people to express, to be able to express and understand their pain. so that they're able to basically react and respond accordingly. In the social media, it's very common to call your workplace a toxic work environment, and to call your boss toxic. It's a toxic bosses and toxic work environment. I think is the outcome of the residual feeling of constant change and the inadequacy, perhaps, or lack of gravitas that people experience in the workplace, in the way in which they've been dealt with in the midst of this constant complexity and change. So I have two questions for you. One is that how do leaders express empathy, especially when they're not receiving any? So one of the challenges of the modern workplace is, how do I express empathy to somebody else when I'm not experiencing any? And the second question I had was that Daniel Goldman says that that sympathy, empathy, compassion have three different circuitries in the brain, right? So which means you can feel sympathy, which is sahanubhuti. You may experience empathy, which is samanubhuti, and you may experience or not experience compassion, which is karuna. So, considering these circuitries are different, it means that you can experience sympathy for someone, but not the empathy to be able to be in their shoes. Or you may really experience empathy for someone, but not intervene to help them. And what people are looking for, particularly in the workplace, is not what you're feeling, but what you're doing about what they're feeling. So I have two questions around empathy. One is the circuitries being different, as a result of which we may experience it but not express it. And the first one, which is how do we find in ourselves the wisdom and the generosity to express empathy when we don't experience any?
Both wonderful questions. So first, let me give a story because you talked about the book. So I was speaking to a group of CEOs of the Tata Group in their
Hmm.
annual conference,
Hmm.
and I asked two volunteers to get up. So Nandan Nilekani, who was to also speak after me, was sitting in the front. So he and another chairman of a Tata company, they both volunteered. I said,
Hmm.
now, Nandan, without removing your shoes, try to step into the other person's shoes
Hmm.
who has removed his shoes.
Hmm.
He said, I can't do it. That's very difficult. Then I said, okay, now remove your shoes. He did. Now
Hmm.
step into the other person's shoes. He did. And how are you feeling? He said, I am experiencing it. So I gave
Hmm.
this analogy. He said, Carl Rogers, perhaps the greatest psychologist of our time, said empathy is about stepping into others' shoes. But
Hmm.
my teacher, Swami Chinmayananda, told us that is not enough. You
Hmm.
have to first learn to get out of your own shoes.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I always do this experiment in all my workshops in my class to
Hmm.
in a 2 minute simulation for making people understand when you get out of your own shoes, then you
Hmm.
will really understand what it is you will
Hmm.
feel. The
Hmm.
problem with most empathy training in workplaces, it's on a competency model. We are
Hmm.
encouraged to look at a scale of empathy. We are encouraged to practice certain behavior, which is
Hmm.
supposed to be empathetic.
Hmm.
But real empathy is not that. There is no scale in mind. There is no nothing you are trying to imitate.
Hmm.
You genuinely have to pay attention to the other person, and you have to give attention as if your life depends on it. When you
Hmm.
are giving attention to that person, undivided attention, even though it may be just for a minute or two, then you have to appreciate where is that other person coming from.
Hmm.
And the moment you do that, you may not agree with the other person,
Hmm.
but at least you can appreciate where that person is coming from. Why is the person so pained about something, or why is the person so excited about something which you think is so simple?
Hmm.
Either way. So that's
Hmm.
true empathy.
Hmm.
Now, the difference, when you pay attention to people in their natural habitat and look at the way they are living their life, you can observe, which is what we do in design thinking. That's what
Hmm.
we teach in anthropology, to
Hmm.
observe people in their natural habitat. You can
Yeah.
make out how are they leading their life.
Hmm.
But when you truly say this is what the person feels, says, thinks, and does, which is what we also call about the tool of making an empathy map, when you get it right, then you start talking about, okay, what do I want to do something about? Because when I am not observing, I am When I am a sympathetic person when I have got my own structure, my own biases, and I am observing others with my biases. That is sympathy.
Mm,
I'm trying to mouth words saying, "Oh, I feel your pain," but actually
mm,
you don't feel the pain at all because you
mm,
are removed. Sympathy is feeling with.
mm,
Empathy is feeling into.
mm,
Whereas compassion is then saying, I want to do something about it. I feel your pain.
mm.
And these are the things I can possibly do to help you to
Right,
overcome your pain. The
right.
very minimum I can do is to be a very wonderful listener to you because half my pain will go away if somebody truly listens without judgment. But the
Yeah,
other is there's something I can do about it. And you
right.
ask another very profound question: how do I express empathy if I don't receive it? See, this aspect of being dependent upon others is because that is the stages of emotional maturity of human beings.
Mm,
That first, as a first I'm a baby, depending upon my mother and my family, and then I get into dependence on a socialized mind. But as I
yeah.
grow further, I begin to do what is called the self-authorship, the
Mm,
authorship of my mind. But ultimately, in the stages of maturity, it comes, which even Keegan's work talks about, the self transforming mind. When
mm,
you are growing in that phase, then you are not dependent on so called empathy from others because you are saying, I am enough. The best friend I have is within me. And that deep love is present inside me. That pure happiness is present inside me. I am enough. But for that, I have to shut off all the noise of social media,
mm,
everything else, and what
mm,
others say. I am enough. I have my best friend inside me. The inner silence is my best friend. And when I seek that, I realize there is so much of love and happiness inside me that I don't have to seek it from anybody. As long as I keep seeking, I keep on feeling disappointed. But the
mm,
moment I get that feeling of inner joy
mm.
by being aware of the power of the life giving force itself, then I
Yeah.
realized actually I was not very happy when I was paying attention to others. Now that I am silent and I have no expectations and there is no ego,
Mm,
then I am completely at peace. I am in that state that we call equipoise. Hmm?
right.
And so that is what this is about. So I think it requires inner work, it requires quiet time with yourself, and
Yes.
then begin to do that. You become your own best friend. And when
Yeah.
you have a date with your own best friend, you know,
Yes.
that makes the love come forth and that makes you
Yes.
then not dependent on others. And then you become always a go giver and you are
Yeah.
not a go getter because young people are brought up with the feeling you have to be a go getter. I think
Mm,
that's the biggest lie because soon they realize that go getter is a very boring concept, whereas go giver
yes.
is really the most beautiful concept because that
Right.
makes you very happy and that makes the world better.
Right. So well said. You spoke about, listening being an important aspect of being able to show empathy. And, I wanted to take a very common example of, a situation where it's not uncommon that very young people reach out to the head of the department or somebody very senior, not in their line of hierarchy, but not immediate manager. So they basically go to the higher level authorities to be able to talk commonly about being dissatisfied about their performance rating, for example. So, when normally that happens, the reaction by the HOD or whoever is very senior is that, I don't know who this person is, especially if it's a really large organization. I mean, I've not worked with this person directly. So clearly, this person's rating is not something I handle. I wouldn't know this person's performance, so I can't comment on the rating. So when they ask for a meeting, it's not uncommon. Just an example, when they do ask for a meeting, it's not uncommon to have them, come out and tell their secretaries or their EAs or whoever that why don't you direct her to somebody else? So maybe oftentimes it's HR or someone else who can intervene and figure. I mean, we do understand this person's dissatisfied, but why don't they talk to human resources or ask human resources to intervene between her and a manager and figure out something to solve it for me. And I'm always telling leaders that this is such a great opportunity when somebody comes to you and is asking, is letting you know that they're discontented with how they were, in short, evaluated, rated, respected for what they contributed during the year, and they believe that this is not a fair reflection of what it is that they've really done. What a great opportunity to give this person time, right? And because they're not actually asking you to change their rating, they want you to know, and they want somebody senior to listen to how they're feeling about the unfairness that they're experiencing. And so I think oftentimes opportunities of this kind are just kind of transactionally dealt with, to be able to say, why doesn't somebody else deal with it? And instead, if they actually found the time, even if it's not a very long period of time, but they found a window to meet the person and to let the person know upfront that, the purpose of why I'm meeting you is because I'm concerned that you're not happy with your performance rating or you don't see that fairly. But you must know that I haven't worked directly with you through the year. And, if I started opening the windows and the doors up for people to be able to come in and talk to me about how their ratings could be changed, then we'd have a long queue here. So, and we'd also undermine the process, and we'll undermine your manager, who's the actual witness to your performance. So, my purpose of meeting you is not so much to be able to tell you that I'm here to change your rating, but I'm here to listen to you. So, I'm interested to know what you've experienced, what is it that you wanted to tell me, and so go ahead and share your perspective with me because I'm interested to know this. So you kind of set the guardrails to the conversation in the sense that there shouldn't be a misconception there that I'm having the conversation because I'm interested in changing your rating. I'm having the conversation because I'm interested in listening to you. And then what happens, the result of listening to this person is that you're going to know the following. You're going to know how this process got communicated down the line, right? You're going to come to know about ways in which we can improve what we're doing with the process and the way the process gets executed. You're going to come to know opportunities to coach the leader because there might be things the leader is not doing or must do more of, so that this you don't end up with people not being satisfied with what their rating at the end of the year is, and then they're going all over the organizations trying to find someone to be able to listen to them. You shouldn't be in that situation. So you actually get ideas for being able to improve the process. And I said, when you show empathy, you're not just showing empathy to the individual who's come forward to talk to you. You're actually showing empathy to the process, to her manager. You're showing empathy to everyone who works to make this process successful. You're showing empathy to all of them when you find time for this. So I like what you said about listening. I mean, people don't necessarily want you to solve everything, but they want you to listen. And I think oftentimes in the melee and the noise that we have within organizations, this is one thing that people are not finding enough time for, which is to be able to actually spend some time to be able to show empathy, to show empathy in action. And I think that the other outcome of this is going to be that whether or not you resolve what this person really needs, in the sense that sometimes could be that you want to relook at what really happened if it was really starkly unfair, but that you found the time to speak and you found the time to connect and you were interested in being able to intervene, is going to do such great things to your brand as a leader, to what leadership means within the organization, what you're role modeling in the context of leadership within the organization, and what people, the reassurance you have that you're working for the right people. You have people who have their head and their hearts in the right places. So, I really like the part on listening. And I think for everyone who's confused about empathy in the workplace, I think just simply listening to people is such a big balm. Listening actually heals relationships, listening heals people who are listened to. And I think it's extremely unfair to not find time for this. So, even just starting with this as empathy, I think is such a great idea. So, thank you for bringing that up because it just sort of triggered me in the fact that I talk so much about finding the time to listen. And that's not everyone's asking you to listen, as in listen and do what they're asking you to do, but they just want you to listen. And I think that is
Thank,
just so powerful.
thank you. And there is one thing which I want us to always remember: never give feedback to yourself or to someone else about their ability.
Hmm.
Always give feedback about effort.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because if you give feedback on ability to yourself or to others, then you are using it, you are framing it like I am good at this and I am not good at that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Whereas the moment I ask questions on effort,
Hmm.
what did you do to understand the situation? What were the alternatives in your mind?
Hmm.
What did you go and understand about this aspect?
Hmm.
Which all parts of the organization did you consult? What were
Yeah.
the issues you faced? And all the time when you're asking exploratory questions to understand and not to judge,
Yeah.
then you're building the capacity of the person to grow.
Yeah.
And even to yourself.
Yeah.
When you always say, I have not been able to do this yet,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
moment I say yet, you
Yes.
are giving yourself permission to become better by
Yes.
putting in a different quality and quantity of effort.
Right.
So
Right.
I haven't figured this out yet.
Yes.
My colleague has not figured it out yet. We as a team have not found the answer yet.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I think it is such an important part of listening to be able to focus
Yes.
on the effort we need to make rather than tell ourselves that we are not good at this or good at that.
Right.
That
Right.
frames it in a very limiting language. This makes it
Yeah.
very beautiful and exploratory.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. At this stage, I wanted to be more inclusive with the audience that has taken the effort to be able to join. Please share your comments, share your questions for Anil. We're at the last 10 minutes of the conversation. Suneet and team, please share forward to us on StreamYard on everything that the audience is sharing or is asking. I think this is a good time to be able to know about the book and know some more about Anil's views before we start asking him some of the questions that you may be interested in asking. While those questions come in, or even some of your comments, which might be useful to be able to share here, I wanted to take the conversation forward towards. I think lot of what is here you've already sort of covered. I wanted to take it to your to the dimension on immunity to change and overcoming our own contradictions. So, can you talk a bit about that? Because you do talk about this in the book, the immunity to
Yes.
change.
Dr. Keegan and his colleagues, Lisa Haley, and they were very troubled by feedback they got originally from Harvard Medical
Hmm.
that perfectly intelligent people were literally killing themselves but not changing their habits.
Hmm.
For example, the case study of a young person who died but would not stop smoking.
Hmm. Yeah.
They were puzzled because Harvard Medical referred it to Dr. Robert Keegan and said, this is not a medical problem, this is something else. And
Yes.
when they began to study this, they understood that on one hand, in the human mind, there is a desire to change. On the other side, the behavior is opposed to bringing about the change.
Hmm.
And they found there is something present in a deeper part of the mind, which what they call hidden competing commitment.
Hmm. Hmm.
Hidden competing commitment. For example, the person who gets feedback that you must become better at dealing with people because there are too many complaints about you, even though you are the best business developer of my company. But there are whistleblower complaints about the way you respect people and
Hmm.
don't respect people. And then you come back and the coach is appointed for you to say, you know what, I want to become better at dealing with people. I don't want to lose my shirt. I don't want to shout at people, etc. That's a starting point. But what do you do instead? So this CEO I was coaching, after 3 weeks of effort of not shouting, he called me and said, Anil, they made me do it again.
Hmm.
They
Hmm.
made me do it again.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because what's present in his mind? Because there is a hidden competing commitment. This guy likes power.
Hmm.
This guy likes fear. What's the
Hmm.
mental model? So their work tells us that this hidden competing commitment has a mental model behind that. The mental
Hmm.
model this person had is that fear is necessary for productivity.
Hmm. Hmm.
Then Keegan's work tells us to say, examine where did this mental model start in your life? What's the
Hmm.
biography of your
Hmm.
mental models?
Hmm.
And look at all the people you have been unwittingly trying to copy who were
Hmm.
very good in one dimension, but along with that, they were very challenging to work with. And you have copied not just the positive part of
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
great producers, but you have unwittingly also copied their very negative style of getting work done. So
Hmm.
when you examine your past conditioning and you realize how your mind has been conditioned by role models which of the kind which have
Yeah.
landed you into this soup today,
Yes.
then he says you can launch an experiment to challenge your mental models, to begin a new way of working, to get out of your conditioning, and to embrace the fact that you this is all inside your own mind, and
Hmm.
you have to invoke that inner witness. Keegan writes in his work, when you observe your own mind, you can transform your mind. So I was fascinated by that phrase,
Hmm.
who is the observer?
Hmm.
Because most of us think that mind is the observer. But
Right.
there is that inner witness that is observing the mind. And therefore,
Hmm.
this is the only Western psychologist I found deeply aligned to the Eastern way, the Japanese way, the
Hmm.
Indian way, the
Hmm.
Confucianist way, the
Yeah.
philosopher way of the East, which said
Yes.
invoke the inner witness. And
Yeah.
so, the moment you can observe the trappings of your own mind, you can get free from that conditioning. Then you
Hmm.
can become free, and then you
Hmm.
can start leading a new life. So that's
Hmm.
what the immunity to change process is about. Yeah.
Right. I find something very fascinating about everything that you say, Anil, because, and they seem to be so much in contradiction to what we see in action in the workplace. For example, your intrinsic belief that people can change, people can improve, people are predisposed towards. It's a very sort of a very theory why kind of an orientation on the fact that people are actually abundant, and if you touch if they're provoked by that inner witness, then they can actually bring forth so much of abundance to the world. Would you agree that the workplaces are exactly at the polar opposite of this belief? In the sense that I don't see many workplaces which are sort of. I think that everyone believes time is at short supply and that talent is aplenty. And so if someone's just not doing it, they ain't got it. So we got to go get somebody who has it. We don't waste more time with someone who's not showing us the right attitude at work. So tell me a bit, for people who are leading people who are not performing or underperforming, how does this philosophy kind of fit in? What would be your advice to managers who are leading people who are underperforming or not doing their best? And while you don't want to put them out in the cold, it looks like that they will need to be replaced sooner than later because they're not rising to the occasion.
See, if the person lacks a skill and the person is given an opportunity to develop that skill, that's a very easy problem to solve.
Hmm.
But if the person has certain values conflicts deep, which means the values are just not aligned with the kind of organization you are, that is the more difficult part. That is the one I would say, if there is no values alignment, it is better to let go of that person, because
Hmm.
to bring about that alignment of values is
Hmm.
going to be extraordinarily difficult. Suppose
Hmm.
your value is great, you value a lot on agility, and
Yeah.
this person by value likes to do work at his own pace,
Hmm.
does not like to be hurried up, does not believe in agility. In fact, his value is that
Hmm.
agility is bad for quality.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's the way leads his life. And he
Hmm.
doesn't want to be pushed around for meeting any targets demanded by your so called customers.
Hmm.
Now, this person may be very good in some venture lab somewhere where he can get an unlimited research budget to innovate,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
is not the right fit for the kind of place that you have recruited him for.
Hmm.
So I think you have to be very careful that you don't condemn the person. Sometimes there is a not enough match. So when there is a values conflict, I would say that is the time to ask, are we suited for each other? And then again, one should not condemn the person and say you are like that, but to say,
Hmm.
our requirements are quite different. I think the way
Hmm.
you look at life, and we respect your worldview, but
Hmm.
that's not the way this organization is positioning itself. So there is
Right.
not enough match. The person will get the message.
Hmm.
But for you to give up just because the person currently is not matching your standards is to ask the question. Is it a question which is coming out of the lack of skill? Because see, does the person have a capacity? Does the person have the right values? Does the person have the right opportunities? Does the person have the right environment? Does the person have the right resources? All these put together result in performance. So when performance
Mm,
is not up to the mark,
mm,
how much is it because of resources? How much of it is because of environment? How much of it is because of encouragement or lack of encouragement? How much of it is lack of actual capacity? The
mm.
moment you say the person's capacity itself is low, and if you are pretty sound in observing that, then of
Yeah.
course it's a question of saying perhaps there are opportunities when they are there. So some
Mm,
capacity is limited, and if you don't have the patience to wait, it is one decision. Values conflict, you don't have any, there is no question of postponing the values conflict dilemmas. Values conflict, I would like us to part.
mm,
Capacity shortage, which means I believe this person's capacity to think is limited, and I'm quite clear this role requires him. Then I'll ask, is there any other role where the capacity to think
mm,
has to be limited, where
mm.
we can utilize his capacity, for example, for action rather than to think?
Yeah. Yeah.
Then we will move the person into that role. But if all capacities seem to be somewhat on the lower side, then once again the situation is that we have not been appreciative of looking at the potential of this person while hiring the person. So
Mm,
then we might as well admit to ourselves. And I think in organizations like that, I can quite understand that time comes when we say, all right, let the person
yeah.
find an opportunity to perform somewhere else.
Somewhere else. Right. So, we're almost on the hour, Neil. We just have a couple of more minutes to go. And this should have been my first question, but I held it for the last, which is why did you feel the need to write this book? And why did you write it now?
For a long time, I've written papers, I've written chapters of books and so on. But one of my co-founders told me, Anil, you have created a school called Inspired Leadership, but you haven't written the book on it. So isn't
Mm,
it time you wrote one? I
okay.
was so full of helping organizations, and I never felt the need to write one. But when he put it in that way, that you are not getting any younger, it's time you put your thoughts together and put it in the form of something which could then be your gift for generations to follow,
Yeah.
for many other people who will take soil to the next level. So why don't you all put it down? So that's when I realized, and then I found a window of opportunity for a few months when I was not traveling. So I said, okay, let the pollution in Delhi, which was an excuse for me to get away to my apartment in Goa and spend some time in the evenings there. So I and my wife would go for long walks, and there on the sunsets in Goa and the places there, I found the time of quiet silence to start making my notes, and I started writing. And
Lovely.
that's where then the book just flowed.
Hmm.
So it just beautifully happened. So that's how it happened.
Beautiful. I'm so glad you wrote it. And last but not the least, leave something behind for the people who are listeners and are participating in this conversation here today, which is around, I personally believe this is one of the most difficult times to teach leadership and inspire people. So, but it's so required. I mean, I think everyone is looking for inspiration. So, give me a sense or a message that you want to leave behind with the audience in the context of the times. The I'm talking about the geopolitical times. I'm talking about all the others complexities and unprecedented experiences that we are having at this time. What do you want to say about writing a book on inspired leadership at a time where we see very contrarian behaviors as compared to what you're advocating in the book?
This is the time to understand and appreciate that we cannot change the context, we cannot change the world, but we can only take responsibility for ourselves. So my whole book is about leadership is about leading yourself. The moment you find a worthwhile cause that you can make a difference to, and you stand for that cause, and you deeply love that cause, leadership will happen to you. The
Hmm.
power will come from the cause you stand for. And
Hmm.
always remember that you are in service of that cause, and that will make you a great leader. And you don't lead anyone. People will choose to come along with you if you stand for something, and
Hmm.
then leadership will happen to you. So that's what I believe.
Right. So lovely having you here. I mean, Anil, you and I are connecting after a very long time, but you make a place in the hearts of people. So thank you for enabling, the talking points conversation today in such an inspiring manner by talking about your book. Um, how have you moved leaders from this obsession to be a problem solving leader or a powerful, influence hungry leader to doing this inner work needed to be an inspiring leader? Very interesting question by Sailaja Mansha. She's talking about the obsession for problem solving that we're talking about, especially if the environment is one that values problem solving. How do you make this influence hungry, problem solving people into people who are interested in this inner work that you're talking about? How do we kind of move people from that state to this inner state?
You confront them with their own freedom.
Hmm.
And because we don't have time, I will teach another small concept. When you teach your own mind to be free, that means when you get a mirror, when somebody shows you the mirror and shows you the contradiction between what you say, gives you immense inner happiness and what you are chasing outside. The moment you realize the emptiness of what you are doing, because that's a double life that you are leading. At one level you want more peace and happiness, on the other you are trying to do something which is completely different. So showing the mirror and confronting the person for the freedom that they have to make the choice for themselves, that's all we can do, show the mirror. I think that's the most responsible thing on somebody's part, in a way that doesn't make them feel small, but in a very compassionate way, show the mirror. That's all I will say.
All right, great, profound thoughts here today, Anil. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do a lot of work in the area of leading with emotional intelligence, and I could almost hear a masterclass around everything that we actually teach on the emotionally intelligent leader. So, thank you so much. This has been such a joy. I really value your time, and want to thank you for having agreed to do this, so graciously. So, thank you so much for the
Thank you.
time. Would to advise everyone you must get a copy of the book, and it is indeed a treat to have a book that has been written by Anil Sachdeva. I can assure you that from all the years of having known about him and his work. um, Anaga is saying, thank you, Dr. Banerjee, for bringing Mr. Anil on the show. Last 60 minutes is a life enlightenment, being a power of now. Amazing experience. Thank you, Anaga. This is such a great compliment, to you and to your absolutely amazing book, which I'm hoping more people are going to buy on the back of this conversation. One more person saying, thank you, appreciate the insight on giving feedback focused on effort rather than ability. I also thought this was a very sort of high point. I mean, it's something I know of, but I think it's a good reminder to be able to be reminded that oftentimes when the feedback is focused on ability, it is more debilitating for people as compared to on the effort. It helps people learn, grow, and handle setbacks more effectively. I totally agree. Whoever has put this out, I think it is a very powerful point, and thank you for making it. Anil, we'll stay in touch, and I one more time, recommend strongly to be able to read the book. This is a book by a legend, and not just an HR legend, but somebody who's a leadership legend. So everyone, please do get hold of the book. Thank you, Anil, and we'll stay in touch.
Thank
Yeah,
you very
many
much.
many.
Thank you. Thank you very
All
much.
right, bye
Thank you.
bye.